episode 44 of our series on the origins and meanings of Appalachian and Southern surnames. Each of the surnames that we'll cover today was requested by members of our YouTube community. To make our task more manageable, we are particularly interested in pre-Civil War families. That's because after the Civil War, America entered the Industrial Revolution and thousands of different families moved from the South to the Rust Belt while foreign immigrants settled across the country. Now, on today's show, we'll investigate the origins and meanings of 10 Appalachian and Southern surnames. To disentangle their origins, we'll look back to medieval England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Scandinavia, and France. I hope you'll join me. Let's get started. Number 1, Goggins. When I received this request, I couldn't help but recall the TV show Justified. It was about a deputy U.S. Marshal played by Timothy Oliphant. By the way, the name Oliphant is pretty important in Scotland, and especially around Stirlingshire over to Dundee. Anyway, the stories are set in Harlan County, Kentucky, not Scotland, but they could have been. Walton Goggins, who's from Birmingham, Alabama, played a bad local guy named Boyd Crowder. While the show was clearly filmed in California, you could tell that by the trees, the rocks, and the landscape features. The stories are quintessential Appalachian. If you're looking for a great binge opportunity, check out Justified. Goggins began its existence as a surname that was applied to places in County Cork, Ireland. Goggin means to cackle. When we put an S on the end of it, we're talking about more than one Goggin, plural, or the son of a Goggin. How would you like to have these place names named after your family? Goggenrath, Goggens Hill, which was earlier called Knockgogan. Just think about it. Vantage Hill. Oh well. While nearly all Irish, Scottish, and Welsh surnames are found in England, not all of them, but most of them, they may not be found in one of the other historic nations of the Isles. Such is the case with Goggin or Goggins. That leads me to believe that it's exclusively an Irish or an Irish-American surname. Number 2, Light. This English surname means bright light, active, or gay, before the purpose of the word took on another meaning altogether. Light is not common in Ireland, Scotland, or Wales. This surname does not appear to be linked to other names like Lightfoot. Sorry, Gordon. I'm more than confident that Light is an English surname. Number 3, Skinner. If you've studied psychology or education courses, you would have no doubt heard of the behaviorist B.F. Skinner. He was famous for coining terms and concepts like operant conditioning, positive reinforcement, and negative reinforcement. But for philosophical reasons, some folks don't like Skinner's model of behaviorism because they claim it reduces humans to non-thinking beings like dogs and horses. Of course that's silly. That's a silly criticism because I've seen my dogs think problems through and make decisions. So, the critic's dog won't hunt. Pun intended. At the end of the day, you didn't tune in to hear me carry on about educational theory, which is a fascinating topic in and of itself. So where did the surname Skinner originate, and what did it mean? Well, as Ronald Reagan would often say, it's a Viking name that was introduced into England between 793 and 1100 AD. It was an occupational name for one who skinned beasties or traded in hides like leather. It appears in the Scottish records as early as 1250. Remember, the north of England was a Viking-rich area, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from the border with Scotland, like places like Gretna Green, for example, where you could get people in England used to run across the border to get married in Gretna Green because you could get married in Scotland at a younger age. It almost sounds like Georgia and North Carolina. However, Skinner also appears in the historic records in Aberdeen, Scotland. That's on the north coast of the Bonny Land. By the way, did you know that the University of Aberdeen was founded just 3 years after Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492? The University of Glasgow, my alma mater, was already 40 years old when that institution was founded. But at the end of the day, I think we could call Skinner an English or Scottish surname of Viking origin, depending, of course, on where your paper trail leads you. Ramey. When I read the request for Ramey, memories of an old colleague named Dr. John Ramey came to mind. He was a longtime professor of mathematics at the University of the Cumberlands up in Williamsburg, Kentucky. Aside from Professor Ramey, I've not had the pleasure of meeting many people with this surname. Ramey doesn't appear in any of my surname books for the Isles, so that led me to look further east. As it turns out, it was an alternate form of the French toponymic Ramey. It was given to a person who lived in a thickly wooded area. I think we're safe in calling Ramey a Franco-American surname. Enterkin. I thought I would never find its origin, but I did. Way down in the southwestern corner of Scotland lies Dumfriesshire. I'm thinking specifically of the Dumfriesshire parish of Durrisdeer. The rare Enterkin surname originated in that parish. George Fraser Black says it's of local derivation, hence its rarity. I'm unable to provide you with its meaning though. It doesn't appear in any of my other surname books, so I think we're safe in calling Enterkin a Scottish surname. Holloway. This English surname was given to a dweller in a hollow path. In my neck of the woods, the word hollow or holler means a narrow, steep valley. The Dictionary of American Family Names says Holloway means a sunken road. I can buy that meaning. Holloway is not found among the common surnames of Scotland or Wales, but it's used as an alternate form of the name Halvey in Ireland. It means noble son. Irish Holloways seem to be concentrated in Leinster. Still, Holloway is an English surname, although a paper trail might show that your line originated in Ireland. Borders. According to the Dictionary of American Family Names, Borders is an Americanized form of the German Boards. The problem with that argument is that it's not listed in my German surnames book, or my German first names book either, for that matter. To show you the lack of accuracy of some online sources, the House of Names, which makes its money off of selling frameable coats of arms online, says Borders is an English name for one who rented a cottage. Keep in mind that in the 1500s, landowners were kicking peasants off their lands because the lords were switching from labor-based rent to cash-only rent. Those that couldn't pay cash were summarily kicked off the land. Even though their families may have lived on that property, the lord's estate, for centuries. For the history buffs out there, this process was called feuing. A vast majority of people by 1600 were renters or boarders. Harrison says that the name boarder was given to a person who lived in a small cottage or farm. It was derived from Old French. Nonetheless, living as a renter was common after the late 1500s. The spelling of Borders doesn't show up in any of my surname books for the Isles, but board without the ER does appear in Harrison's book on the surnames of the United Kingdom. In fact, I've not found it listed in any of my books, so it could well be an Americanized name for the son of someone who lived near a border or who was a dweller in a small cottage in England. Fitch. When I received the request for the surname Fitch, I had flashbacks to the 1981 Boston Celtics. At that time, the team was coached by Bill Fitch. He also was Larry Bird's first coach in the NBA. Not a bad career. Here's where discussing Fitch gets a bit stinky. It was a contemptuous Anglo-French-Teutonic nickname for from a polecat. That origin tells me that it was of Norman origin, and it was introduced by the forces of William the Conqueror in 1066. It was not found among the common names in Scotland or Wales. It's found in Ireland as an alternate form of Fitzpatrick or Fitzsimmons. I think Fitch is an Anglo-Norman name, but it could have arrived in the colonies or later than in the United States, that is, with Irish immigrants. Surely, a paper trail would be needed to determine the origin of your line of Fitch. Ollis. Boy, a lot of different spellings with Ollis. This surname originated in Leinster, Ireland. The family is related to Gaelic nobles. I'm confident that the Ollis folk here in the South carry an Irish surname. Next, Clark. Do you remember the long-running TV show Hee Haw and its segment called I'm a Pickin' and I'm a Grinnin'? The musical segment featured Buck Owens and Roy Clark. For those of you who never heard of Roy, he was arguably one of the finest guitar players in the world. Unfortunately for him, he loved country and western music, so a lot of critics they look at rock music, for example, as more important than country music when it comes to those sorts of proclamations. Anyway, the surname originated in England as an alternate form of clerk. In Ireland, though, it's an Americanized version of O'Clery. In the 12th century Scotland, the name was given to a man who belonged to a religious order, but later it was given to scholars. At the end of the day, one would need a paper trail to see where your line of clerk originated. Well, friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope you got something helpful and meaningful out of the discussion. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a whole lot. I invite you to check out all the videos on the Vantage Point. In addition to the Surnames of Appalachia and the South series, they cover a wide range of topics, including an episode on the Great Blizzard of 1888. If the man warrants it, I'll be back soon with another episode on the Surnames of Appalachia and the American South. I hope to see you then. God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.